On the planet Lyrian, where the sky shimmers with all the colors of the rainbow and the trees sing the melodies of the wind, there lived a young alien named Aura. She had aquamarine skin, hair made of soft, glowing threads, and eyes that reflected the stars. But most of all, Aura loved her rabbit, a furry creature named Paw, whom she found in a forest of glowing mist. Paw was not a simple animal. He could sense the approach of danger, and his ears responded to vibrations in space. Aura and Paw were inseparable. Together, they explored flying islands, collected dream pollen, and saved wild creatures from spatial storms. One day, when Aura went out to collect crystals in Echo Valley, a crack appeared in the sky, a portal leading to the void. Any living thing that came too close was sucked in. Paw, curious as ever, jumped too close and disappeared. Aura rushed towards the portal in desperation. The void was a dimension from which no one had ever returned. But she couldn't leave Paw. Putting on her light shield and activating her levitation sandals, Aura jumped after her. The darkness of Void Shadow wasn't just darkness. It whispered, called, tempted. Aura felt her thoughts jumbled, but she focused on one thing, finding Paw. Soon she heard a tiny squeak, small, barely audible. It was him. The Paw was surrounded by shadow creatures, shadow snakes that fed on fear. Aura activated the heart core, a crystal made of friendship energy. It flared, illuminating the darkness. The shadows hissed and disappeared, unable to withstand the light. Aura grabbed Paw and, channeling all her power into returning, opened a return portal with the reality compass. They flew out of the void at the last moment, before the crack in the sky slammed shut. When Aura returned home, she hugged Paw Paw to her chest. He was scared, but safe. Since then, they became even closer, and a tiny pendant with a particle of light, capable of driving away any darkness, began to shine around Paw Paw's neck. A few days had passed since returning from the void. Paw had become a little quieter, still twitching in his sleep and clinging to Aura whenever the shadows rustled nearby. Aura never left his side. She felt that something in the void had changed Paw and her. One night, when the stars began to form a strange pattern, Paw suddenly began to glow. His eyes glowed with moonlight and he whispered, "Crystallizar is calling." Aura froze. Paw spoke. This had never happened. Even the most ancient beasts of Lyrian did not have speech. "Paw," she said quietly, "you can talk?" "Only in the dreams of the stars," he answered. "But we have little time. The void is not the end. It is a gate. Something has awakened there. It knows of you. You are the star key." Aura tried to ask 1,000 questions, but Paw turned back into a normal rabbit, curling up in her lap. The next day, Aura traveled to the ancient Temple of Echoes, a place where the ancestors are spoken to. There, among the glowing obelisks, she activated the ancient star compass. The compass sang, not mechanically, but as if with a whisper of peace, and showed the way to the sandpipes at the edge of the planet, where time slows down. According to legend, Crystallizar was kept there, a being born from the first star. It knew the answers to all questions, but it only awakened if the key appeared in the world. Aura and Paw set out on their journey. They crossed the mirror marshes, where their reflections tried to speak to them, made their way through the rock spider forest, where the paths moved as if alive, and finally reached the pipes. They descended into a huge cavernous hall, where the air hummed with the sounds of invisible songs. In the center of the hall was a huge crystal, like a heart. It beat slowly in the rhythm of the universe. "This is Crystallizar?" Aura whispered. Paw jumped forward, and his pendant began to glow. The crystal revealed an eye, ancient and shining like the galaxy itself. "You came," a voice thundered inside Aura's consciousness. "You are the one who saved the rabbit, and thus saved the universe from the first step of the void, but the path has only just begun. A beam of light rose from the depths of the crystal and turned into a map of star worlds. Among them, one was black, swallowed by darkness. He has awakened, the one who lost his name. He wants to devour your companion, for he now holds the spark of the star word. You must protect the paw and find the 3 seals of light before he finds them first. Aura stood there, clenching her fists. She didn't understand everything, but she knew one thing. She wouldn't let anyone take paw, even if they had to go through the stars. Aura hadn't slept since hearing Crystallizar's voice. The map of the star world still hovered in her mind, as if burned into the inside of her eyelids. Paw had begun to act differently. Sometimes he would stop in the middle of the road, staring into space, as if he heard something. But they were not alone. As Aura and Paw flew over the icy comet, en route to the first seal of light, her ship, the Melody of the Wind, picked up a distress signal. It was strange, short pulses like a heartbeat. Aura couldn't ignore the call. She changed course and found on the fragment of an ancient satellite a girl. Her skin was silver, her hair was like smoke, and her eyes, pupilless, black as space. She was unconscious but alive. Aura carried her to the ship. Paw hissed at first, which was not at all like him, but then he fell silent. A few hours later, the girl woke up. She gave her name, Lyra. Her voice sounded like cracking ice. "Who are you?" Aura asked, wary. "Where are you from?" Lyra didn't answer right away. "I was, once, a guide. Helped those who sought the star paths. But the void, it changed me. I ran from it. But it is inside me." She looked at Paw, and inside him too. Aura instinctively hugged the rabbit to her chest. "Are you dangerous?" "No, but I am the door, and behind the door is he." That same night, Aura awoke in terror. Her consciousness was clouded by smoke, and she stood before a tall silhouette. There was no face, only a mask carved from frozen light. In his hands he held a mirror, reflecting a paw. The voice was cold as a vacuum. "Give it to me, or I'll take you." She woke up screaming. Lyra stood in the doorway, all in the moonlight. She felt something. He looks for loopholes, through dreams, through fear, through love. Aura looked at Paw. He was shaking. His pendant was cracked, and in the center was a thin, dark vein. "We're late," Lyra whispered. "The first seal is almost found, but not by us." They headed for the Red World, a planet covered in ancient ruins and mountains where creatures older than matter itself slept. But while they were flying, in another corner of the galaxy, he woke up completely, and his first command sounded like a bell striking the void. "Find the rabbit, burn everything nearby." The planet Tal Riss, nicknamed the Red World, was like a wound in the universe. The sand moved as if it were breathing, and the sky glowed with brown fire. This was the place where, according to Crystallizar, the first seal of light slept, a fragment of the ancient power that could stop the shadow. But Aura felt that they were not alone. Lyra barely spoke during the landing. She stood by the window and peered at the horizon. Her body trembled like a compass before a storm. "Someone has been here before," she said finally. "I sense traces of distorted energy. They are looking for the seal." "Who?" Aura asked. Lyra turned slowly. "The Shadow Collectors. Once they were Star Knights, now they are shells. He devoured their names." Aura, Lyra, and Paw emerged onto the surface. The Crystallizar's compass began to spin, pulsing with light as it led them to the depths of the Temple of Shards. Along the way, they encountered the first signs of darkness: charred trees, melted rocks, and masks, the same as the one who came to Aura's dream. They reached the entrance to the temple, half-ruined, entwined with black and gold vines. On the walls were ancient writings. "The seals will not hide the light from him who was the light." "It's about him," whispered Lyra. Suddenly the sand began to move. 3 men rose from the ground. In tall black armor, no faces, only shining slits where the eyes should be. One had wings made of ash. Another had a sword made of screams. The third held a sphere with a shadow, in which floated something like a rabbit's ear. "Give me the star beast," they said in unison. "It's not yours, it's his." Aura stood in front of Paw. Lyra extended her hand and a moon blade burst from her fingers, singing like an icy flute. The fight was short but brutal. Aura activated her light shield and launched Sand Wave, an ancient technique given to her by the inhabitants of the planet Silkar. Lyra fought with the precision of a dance, deflecting the blows of her enemies, cutting through the darkness. Paw jumped straight into battle. The last shard of light fell from his pendant and struck the ground, creating a wave that sent one of the collectors flying into the abyss. The rest retreated. One left a phrase, "You can't save him, Aura. He's already a mark." The temple welcomed them. The walls opened, and before Aura stood a sphere, shimmering like morning ice. Inside was the first seal of light. When she touched it, the world disappeared. Aura was in emptiness, but there was a song in it. She heard her own voice, and Paw's voice, and another, gentle, ancient, without gender or age. "You have passed the test. The light in you is not just light, it is love. You are the guardian. You are the shield." When she returned to reality, the seal was already inside her, like a second heart, beating in time with her soul. Lyra approached silently. Paw fell silent. "There are 2 seals left," said Lyra. Aura nodded, but inside she knew. With every seal found, he would come closer. And when the moment comes, she will have to make a choice: save Paw or the entire universe. After Aura took the first seal into herself, her dreams became strange. She saw stars falling backwards, heard Paw speaking in poetry, and Lyra crying alone on the ice planet she once called home. The ship Melody of the Wind raced through the warp tunnels towards its next destination, the planet Tes-Ral, home of Lyra. There, amidst the ruins of ancient temples, rests the second seal. But this time, they were not alone. "Are you sure you want to come back here?" Aura asked as they approached the planet, hidden under a blanket of gray storms. "No," Lyra answered simply, "but I have no right not to return." On Tes-Ral, everything was dead. The sky was a cracked dome. Time moved slowly, as if resisting itself. Aura noticed how Lyra was becoming quieter. She kept whispering something under her breath, as if repeating names. "What are you saying?" Aura asked one night. "Names, the ones he took away. I was among the first to choose the side of light. We lost everything, but I still remember, at least a little." Paw was asleep in Aura's arms. His fur was darker, almost silver, and his eyes were deeper. He didn't speak anymore, but he knew. They entered the ruined Temple of Song, where music had once flowed and controlled matter. But now only the wind sang. In the center of the hall was a lake, motionless as a mirror. Beneath it was the seal. "We need to go down," Lyra said. "But we're not alone." He came out of the shadows, tall as a statue, a mask of light, a cloak woven from forgotten voices. He didn't attack. He just stood there and spoke. "You found the first spark, and now you've come for the second. Admit it, you're afraid of losing the rabbit." Aura felt Paw tremble in her hands. "He is already the mark. You bear the light, but the light is what I was. You are not the only one who has the right to sacrifice." "Who are you?" Aura shouted. "You don't even have a name!" He slowly raised his hand, and the air behind him flowed, revealing a vision. Lyra, in the past, standing next to him. He extended his hand to her. "She was mine. She remembers. Tell her, Lyra." Aura froze. Lyra turned away. "Is it true?" Aura whispered. Lyra was silent. He continued. "I do not destroy. I preserve. I am memory. You want to survive. I am oblivion. You want to remember. But sooner or later you will understand. To preserve means to let go." And then he disappeared, leaving behind only a mirror. It reflected not Aura but Paw, but old alone, looking into the void. They descended into the lake in silence. The seal was there, waiting. But this time, when Aura touched her, the voice inside was different. "You have received the light, but behind every light there is a shadow. The second seal is not only power, it is a price. Be prepared." The light in her chest became stronger, but her heart also became heavier. When they reached the surface, Aura didn't say a word. She just hugged Paw and whispered, "Whatever happens, I won't give you up." Lyra stood to the side, her face blank, and somewhere in the shadow of the mirror, the voice was heard again. "The next one will be the last one, and there you will have to choose, light or Paw." They were flying to the last point on the map, a nameless planet on the very edge of the galaxy, lost in a black nebula, the one that is not marked in any stellar archive. There, in the heart of a dead star, rests the third seal of light. But with each passing minute, anxiety grew in Aura's chest. Paw barely moved. He felt heavy, as if the darkness inside him was thickening. His fur, now completely silver, was beginning to shimmer, as if he were transforming. Sometimes Aura felt like he was looking at her not as a rabbit, but as something ancient. Someone who knew more than she did. Lyra was silent. She avoided meeting Aura's gaze. "Tell me," Aura finally spoke, "were you really with him?" "Yes," Lyra replied, "but not as an ally. I was his heart." The Aura froze. "I was created by him. Not born, not raised. Created to feel, to understand, to walk next to those he wants to understand and destroy." "So all this time you," Aura whispered. "I am a spy, I was, but I am also a void, only with a crack." Lyra looked at Paw. "But you, Aura, you gave me light, and if the void can have a heart, it is now yours." They have arrived, a planet without an atmosphere, with a crater in its center, and in the crater, a living flame. This was not just a star. This was the heart of the first world, the place where the universe itself was born. The third seal floated within him, rotating slowly, emitting a golden pulse. "I feel," Aura whispered. "She's alive. She's calling for Paw." "Because he is its bearer," said Lyra. "You think you are the key, but you are not. Paw is not just a creature. He was created with the seals. He is their vessel. He is the third, not a seal. He is himself." Aura recoiled. "No, I found him in the forest." "You found him because he found you." And at that moment, the sky burst open. He came, without a mask. Now he was a face. But it had no features. His face was your reflection, no matter how you looked. It whispered fears. It spoke with the voices of the departed. He extended his hand to Paw. "You are tired. Give yourself to me. I will keep you, and she will forget. It will be mercy." Aura screamed. "No, you won't get it." "Then you have to make a choice." The seal pulsed. The voice inside the heart of the first light said, "If you want to save him, break the seal. Don't let the light become a weapon. Let everything dissolve. If you want to save the universe, let him go. Don't let him get the vessel." Aura stood between three entities. The Paw that was her whole world, the light that could save billions, and the shadow who knew her weakness. "I don't choose," she said. She lifted Paw into her arms and stepped into the heart. The flames didn't burn her. They accepted her. And at that moment, the entire cosmos held its breath. The flame of the heart of the first light was supposed to incinerate, but instead of pain, Aura felt silence, not the absence of sound, and the absence of everything. There was no before or after in this place. Only now, only her, and Paw. They floated in the white space as if in a dream. "Where are we?" Aura whispered, looking around. "Beyond choice," answered a voice unlike any before. He did not belong to the light nor to the dark. He was pure. A silhouette appeared in front of her, transparent, neither man nor woman, eyes of stardust. "You stepped into the source. You didn't save it. You didn't destroy it. You did the third thing, what wasn't intended." Aura pressed Paw. He looked at her with a human gaze. "He is alive. He is more than he was, less than he will become." "What does it mean?" The creature approached. "You broke the law. Light should not love, but you did, and darkness was jealous." "So that means I lost?" "No, you gave birth to something new." Images began to appear around Aura. Lyra, standing on the edge of the universe, crying but smiling. He who was called by the name without sound, crumbles into stardust, and Paw spreads its wings. He is not a rabbit anymore. He is the being of light and shadow. Inside it are the seals. He became the bearer of the third way. "You have one life, but you have already lived it," said the voice. "Now your soul is not an instrument, but a source." Aura understood. She was not a weapon, not a savior, not a victim. She is the mother of the new era. When they returned, the world was different. The sky was clear. Lyra was waiting for them, and there was peace in her eyes. And around in space, new stars began to appear from the dust that remained from the darkness. 137 star orbits have passed since Aura disappeared in the flames of the first light. Her name became a legend. But Paw, he stayed. He didn't age. He didn't grow. He didn't die. He was, is, and will be. He became the guardian of the border, the one who guards the balance between light and shadow. He walked through the worlds like a silent wanderer, sometimes like an animal, sometimes like a young man with eyes in which the spirals of time revolve. And then one day he heard a call. Planet Mir Sen, young, wild. Something new was being born on it, but unnatural. Something was awakening in the depths, something that should not have been. Paw landed softly, without a ship, surrounded by an aura of stardust. He was met by her, Elora, a young explorer living in an isolated village located on the edge of the ruins of an ancient civilization. She had leathery wings, eyes that glowed with emotion, and a gift. She could see traces of the shadow. "Who are you?" she asked, seeing Paw. "You're strange." "I was a rabbit," he replied, "and now I'm just a memory." Elora chuckled. "Great. I'm just looking for someone who knows what to do with the ancient evil waking up in the crater next to my house." Paw didn't answer, but he already felt. He was coming back. Not the same one, another, a student, or an echo. They set out on their journey. Elora is impulsive, smart, and kind. Paw is quiet, observant, but with a spark inside that's ready to flare up. On the way, they found an ancient symbol, the mark of the crack which he once used. "That's a bad sign," Paul whispered. "Where the fabric cracks, thirst appears." Thirst for what? Forget everything that made us alive. At night, Paul saw her again. Aura, in a dream. She stood on the shore of the starry ocean and smiled. In her arms is a little girl with hair like sunbeams. "This isn't the end," she said. "This is the beginning of another fairy tale. Just don't let the pain become a reason to close. Open up, even if it's scary." "How?" asked Paul. "Find her, the girl, my daughter. She was born beyond time. She is the spark, and she is in danger." Paul woke up. His eyes were glowing. He looked at Elora. "Do you feel the earth vibrating?" "Yes, it's not just evil. It's a gate. Someone is trying to break out into this world, and I know who he's looking for." "Whom?" Paul raised his head to the sky. "Daughter of Aura. Her name was Ilian. She lived on a fragment of a satellite, lost between layers of time, a place where stars fade more slowly and memories cast shadows. She was raised by an old, wise being called only Song, who had no body, only a voice that lived in wind crystals. Ilian never asked unnecessary questions, but there was a fire in her eyes, not a flash, a deep light like those who are not born by chance. Every night she saw dreams. In them is a woman with eyes that reflect the universe, and a rabbit glowing, alive, close. And in every dream the woman said the same thing. Soon, he will hear you, and then either you will choose yourself or he will choose you. At the same time, Paul and Elora reached the heart of the rift on Mir Sen. It was empty and scary. There were mirrors on the walls. Their fears were reflected in them. Elora saw herself being consumed by ash. Paul, how he becomes a little rabbit again. And Aura leaves without recognizing him. But in the center of the hall there was a third mirror, and Ilian was reflected in it. She stood alone, and Shadow was approaching her, with a face that Paul recognized immediately. He came back, but in a different way. On the other side of the universe, Ilian woke up in a cold sweat. Everything around her sang with disturbing frequencies. The song, her guardian, trembled in the crystals. "Ilian," she said for the first time, her voice coming from the darkness. It's time for you to go." Where? To him, to the one who carries a part of your beginning. He comes to you to protect or test you. His name is Paul. He knows who your mother was. Ilian froze. Did I have a mother? Yes, star, burnt so that you could appear. She left a spark in you, but you must choose what to do with it. And your father? She suddenly asked. The song fell silent. He was not the one who gave birth. He was the one who waited. And he already knows where you are. At that very moment, Paul looked up at the sky. He felt the gaze. And in the void, a voice sounded old, familiar, and disfigured by time. You brought her into the world. But the world no longer needs the spark. It craves the ash. This was the faceless disciple speaking. What was left of the name without sound. The new bearer of darkness. He was not alive. He was a voice of repercussion. An echo of the void that had found a new body. Paul understood. He needed to hurry. Ilian is in danger. Not because she is weak, because she is too strong. If she makes the wrong move, she could be the new beginning or the new end. Ilian sat on the edge of the asteroid bridge, where space twisted into a funnel of light and sound. She felt something, someone approaching. There was a tremor inside, not from fear, from recognition. Her fingers glowed faintly. They vibrated with an energy she couldn't explain. Ever since Song had spoken the truth, her dreams had become more vivid. And inside there is a voice, gentle but stubborn. Soon the one who is not afraid of you will come. The one who was before you, the one who saved and lost. Paul and Elora jumped onto this very bridge from the ancient navigation circle. Paul felt her presence, as if a forgotten sun had flared up inside him. She's here, he said. Elora just nodded. I'll stay outside. It's your move. Ilian turned around and saw him. At first just a rabbit, silver, with eyes like pools. And then he stepped into the light and his form changed. A tall young man, strange, not a man, not a beast, something in between. He didn't smile. He just stood there, like he was back home. Are you Paul? She asked. And you are the daughter of the one I lost, and for whom I became who I am. Did you know my mother? I knew her better than she knew herself. She saved the universe, and she died so that you could be born. Ilian looked down. So, I'm the reason for her death? Paul came closer. No, you are the reason the light remains. You are not a debt. You are a gift. And at that moment, the ground beneath them shook. He came out from inside the funnel. Not a name without a sound. That one disappeared forever. But the disciple, an entity that took the fragments of an old horror and breathed new fury into them. It was empty, but it spoke with the voices of those who once believed in the light and abandoned it. That's what you are. Spark, he hissed. Mother made a choice. Let's see if you will. He raised his hand and the space burst. The illusions began to fall. Ilian saw herself in the future. Shrouded in shadow, mistress of the force, storm of the galaxies. Paul, he saw Aura, shrouded in fire, reaching out to him. And behind her, emptiness. Elora, outside the ring of illusion, understood. If she doesn't intervene now, history will repeat itself. But Ilian closed her eyes, took a breath, and for the first time I consciously activated the spark. A star flared up inside her. All possible outcomes were reflected in her eyes, and she said, I am not a choice, I am a will. An explosion of light tore apart the illusions. The student disappeared, thrown into the depths of the void, and Ilian fell to her knees, all in radiance. Paul ran up. His hand shook as he touched her shoulder. You did it. She looked up. No, I just started. I need to know the truth, all of it, until the end. About what? About who was my father? And where is he now? The three of them, Ilian, Paul, and Elora, were flying to the last ancient beacon of the universe, the abode of the grain of light, a place where all beginnings converge into one and all secrets can be revealed. But only once. The lighthouse has not received guests for 1,000 years. But when Ilian approached, he opened up. There is white silence inside, and in the center is the keeper of names. He didn't speak. He conveyed meanings into the heart. Ilian walked up to him. I want to know who my father was. The guardian touched her forehead, and images flashed before her. First the stars, then a girl, Aura, young, brave, and next to her is Paul. But not a rabbit, not a young man, but light, pure form, energy, consciousness, pain, love. Ilian recoiled. No, this can't be. Paul came up. His face was calm. The eyes are full of soft sadness. I knew you would find out someday. Yes, Ilian, I'm not exactly your father, but I am her choice. When Aura entered the heart of the first light, she gave everything she had. And the universe answered. I became a vessel for what she left behind. And from this, you were born. So I am not born of the flesh. No, you were born of love. And this is stronger than any blood. Ilian began to cry, but not from pain. And from a sense of belonging, she was no longer alone. Outside, the void began to collapse. The faceless disciple attempted to return, but it was already too late. The universe itself rejected him. The light in Ilian was a new beginning. He didn't fight. He rewrote the rules. Many years have passed. Lyra has now become the guardian of the border, replacing Paul. Elora headed the Academy of World Harmony. And Paul disappeared. Nobody knew where he went. Some say he became a rabbit again. Others say that he is now a star, illuminating new lives. And Ilian became a legend, not like a heroine. And what about the one who didn't choose a side and created her own? And when in a distant corner of the galaxy a child was born, opening his eyes for the first time and seeing the world, a silver ear was reflected in his pupils for a moment, and a warm voice, "I'm nearby.